The day I chose truth over family, how I ruined my sister's wedding and freed myself in the process. I wouldn't do this unless I believed he deserved to know the truth. That's what I said. No theatrics. No shouting. Just the truth, plain and sharp as a splinter in the heart. Lisa froze. She was halfway into her dress, one arm still bare, the other tucked into lace and lies. The stylists paused, curling irons mid-spin, foundation brushes hovering in the air. The room didn't go quiet, it stopped breathing. It wasn't just the words. It was me saying them. Because up until that moment, I had been the quiet one. The big brother who played it safe. Who kept his distance. Who swallowed all the weird looks, all the casual dismissals from our parents, and all the years of pretending Lisa wasn't who she really was. But I was done pretending. Derek walked in, smiling like a man who believed in happily ever after. I felt sick looking at him. Not because he was a bad guy, he wasn't. That was the worst part. He was good. Steady. The kind of guy who brought his fiancée's mom coffee just the way she liked it. The kind of guy who knew Lisa's order at 3 different Thai places because she gets cravings at night. The kind of guy who didn't deserve what was about to hit him. "Hey babe," he said, walking in with that dopey grin. "You ready?" That's when I stepped forward. "Derek," I said, and he looked at me. Confused, polite. Like I was about to give a toast. "She's been cheating on you," I said. "For a long time. No fluff. No soft launch." His smile didn't fall, it shattered. "And Lisa?" Lisa didn't scream. She didn't deny it. Not right away. She just stared at me with that look she used to give me when we were kids and I'd caught her sneaking the last cookie or lying to mom about my test scores. It wasn't fear. It was calculation. Watching. Waiting. Weighing the odds. Then came the tears. "He's lying," she gasped, backing toward the vanity. "You know how he's always been jealous. He's never liked seeing me happy." I could have laughed at that if it hadn't hurt so much. The manipulation was so smooth it almost made me question myself. Almost. But I wasn't the same kid anymore. I'd spent years collecting the evidence, even if I didn't realize that's what I was doing. The texts she thought I hadn't seen. The weekend trips that didn't line up. The voicemail she accidentally left me laughing with someone who definitely wasn't Derek, calling him boring but useful. Useful. That's all he'd ever been to her. So I looked at him, at Derek, and I said, "You can still walk away." He didn't answer. Not right then. His eyes were on her, but they weren't seeing her anymore. Not the version she sold to everyone. He was seeing what I'd been seeing for years, the cracks she couldn't quite keep hidden. I left the room after that. Not because I couldn't face what came next, but because I already had. For years. I didn't go far. Just down the hall, leaned against a wall across from some oversized painting of a swan lake or something equally dramatic. My pulse was trying to punch its way out of my chest. I could still hear them. Not their words, just noise. Muffled crying. Raised voices. The sound of something shattering. A champagne glass maybe. I'd spent my entire life playing it safe around Lisa. Giving her space. Giving my parents the benefit of the doubt. Giving myself excuses to stay quiet. But now I'd said it. Out loud. To his face. I didn't whisper it at a family dinner or hint around it in a concerned text. I looked the man in the eye and dropped a grenade into the middle of his wedding day. And I didn't even know if he believed me. Part of me wanted to run. Just leave the church entirely, disappear into a lift and fly back to my apartment and let someone else clean up the fallout. But that part of me? That's the part Lisa always counted on. The part that flinched. The part that bent so no one had to deal with the break. I stayed. And not 2 minutes later, the door swung open. Derek stepped out, eyes red. Not crying, not yet. But close. He didn't even look at me at first. Just walked past like he was trying to keep his bones from crumbling. "Hey," I called out. He stopped. Slowly turned. "Can I talk to you?" I asked, already bracing for him to punch me. But he just nodded, jaw tight. We stepped into one of those weird side rooms churches have probably meant for prayer or panicked grooms, and he sat down like gravity had finally won. "I'm sorry," I said. Not for what I'd done, but for how it had to be done. He stared at the floor. "I've known about some of it for a while," he said finally. Voice quiet. Like he was ashamed. But I told myself it was stress. That I was imagining things. She always had a way of making me feel like it was me. "Yeah," I said. "She's good at that." I thought maybe marriage would fix it. I didn't answer right away. There's no good comeback to that, just the kind of silence that hangs between people when reality has finally arrived and it didn't bring cake. "She ever do that stuff to you?" he asked. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "Yeah. She's been doing it to me since we were kids. Different kind of betrayal, same game." always twisting the story, always leaving me looking like the bitter one. He nodded like some part of him had suspected it all along. Maybe that's what hurt most, that deep down he'd known. We both had. We just didn't want to believe someone we loved could use that love like a leash. Then he asked the question I didn't expect. Why now? And man, that one knocked the wind out of me. I could have said it was for him, that I didn't want him to walk into a trap, that I was trying to protect him from a lifetime of what I'd already lived through. But that wasn't the full truth. I think I just hit my limit, I said. One more lie and I was going to drown in it. We sat there a long time. No decisions. No fireworks. Just two men caught in the quiet wreckage of a truth that had waited too long to be told. And even then, I knew it wasn't over. Because telling the truth is never the end. It's just the spark. I left the church before the guests even knew what happened. Slipped out the side door, loosened my tie, and walked the block and a half to this little park behind the bakery, where Lisa used to make me pick up her favorite macarons every Thursday after work. The irony wasn't lost on me. I sat on a cold bench across from a rusted fountain, listening to the buzz of wedding bells that were probably canceled by now. The sun was still out. Felt wrong, honestly, like the world should have gone gray to match the mood. But nope. Blue skies, birds chirping, kids laughing somewhere in the distance. The kind of day that people take pictures of. The kind of day Lisa had probably imagined her wedding would be. I pulled out my phone. No missed calls. No texts. Not from Lisa. Not from my parents. That silence? That wasn't an oversight. That was the message. Loud and clear. And still, a part of me felt like I just betrayed someone. Not Derek. Him I was trying to save. Not even myself. I gave up on being understood by my family a long time ago. No, it was something deeper. Maybe it was the version of myself that still believed in some kind of peace. The little kid in me who used to share popsicles with Lisa on the porch, before everything got twisted and sharp between us. Maybe I broke something that couldn't be fixed. Because even if Derek walked away, and part of me prayed he would, I knew Lisa wouldn't. Not from me. Not from revenge. She never let go of a grudge. She collected them like trophies. And my parents? They were going to side with her. They always did. The miracle baby. The one who came after a miscarriage so she could do no wrong. She could light the house on fire and they'd hand her the matches again. She could frame me for it, and they'd ask me why I was always trying to start trouble. The weight of that history, it was pressing down on my chest like a boulder I tried to pretend wasn't there. So I sat there, staring at a fountain with no water, asking myself the only question that mattered. Was I the villain now? Because truth feels noble when you speak it in the mirror. But out here in the real world, it looks like betrayal, sounds like bitterness. And if you're the only one saying it, if no one claps, no one says thank you for being brave, then what was it all for? I had no answer. Not yet. Just that question, burning a hole in the quiet. What kind of person ruins his sister's wedding? Even if he's right. The first text came 3 hours after I left the church. It was from Mom. Just 4 words. You went too far. No, are you okay? No, we should talk. Just that. A judgment cold and clean like something chiseled in stone. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have things to say. Believe me, I had plenty. But because I knew how this game went. I'd seen the rules play out since I was old enough to spell favoritism. Lisa throws the grenade. I get blamed for the noise. By that evening, my phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree with the worst ornaments. Aunt Gina, my cousin Dave, who I haven't spoken to since he borrowed my car in college and returned it with a dent and a pizza crust in the backseat. Old neighbors who'd known us since we were kids. Everyone suddenly had an opinion. Family isn't perfect, but you don't air dirty laundry like that. She's your sister, man. You couldn't just talk to her privately? Privately? You think I didn't try? Lisa burned through second chances like gasoline on pavement. Every time I spoke up, I got talked down. She was young, emotional, still learning. But I was the one who needed to be the bigger person. Well, this time I got big enough to tell the truth. And now, they all turned on me like I was the one who brought shame to the family, not the one who tried to stop someone from marrying into it. What no one asked not once was if it was true. Derek went silent. That one stung more than I expected. He didn't text. Didn't call. Just vanished like a ghost from a story I wasn't allowed to finish. And honestly, I couldn't blame him. Even when you want to believe the truth, it hurts worse when it confirms your fears. I spent the next day in my apartment, pacing. No appetite. No sleep. Just this buzzing under my skin like my body couldn't decide if it was anxious or angry or both. Around noon, I got another text. This one from Lisa. Hope you're happy. You always find a way to ruin everything. No period. No haha. Just venom. Clean and simple. And you know what? That one didn't sting. Not like the others. Because I think I finally understood something. She didn't care what she did. Only who saw it. That's when the fallout became real, not because I was cut off, but because I realized I'd never truly been part of their world to begin with. I was tolerated. Until I became inconvenient. I wasn't the brother. I was the broom they used to sweep the mess under the rug. But not anymore. 2 days after the wedding that wasn't, Dad called. Now understand something, my father's a man of few words and even fewer apologies. When we were growing up, he once accidentally reversed over my bike in the driveway and said shouldn't have left it there. That's the level we're working with. So when his name popped up on my phone, I figured it was either a pocket dial or a storm warning. I let it go to voicemail. He actually left one. Hey, I guess you probably don't want to hear from us right now. Your mom's been crying. Lisa won't come out of her room. I didn't know it was that bad. I wish you'd told us earlier. Anyway, call if you want. I played it 3 times just to make sure I heard it right. Didn't know it was that bad. Wish you'd told us earlier. I'd told them for years. But hearing that hesitation in his voice, the quiet clumsiness of someone who finally realized the foundation was cracking, did something to me. Not forgiveness, I wasn't there yet, but something softer than rage. Something like pity? I didn't call him back. Not yet. But it shook something loose. Later that night, I got a knock at my door. Thought it might be a delivery. I'd ordered Chinese. Comfort food. But it wasn't the food. It was Aunt Gina. The same one who texted me, "You don't air dirty laundry," 2 days ago. She stood there in a bright green sweater, holding a Tupperware full of what I assumed was her famous lasagna. And before I could say a word, she spoke. "I owe you an apology," she said, soft but direct. "I shouldn't have jumped down your throat." Lisa's always had a way of twisting things. I just didn't want to believe it was true. I stepped aside. Let her in. Because something about that moment, maybe the lasagna, maybe the honesty, made me realize this fallout wasn't going to be clean. There were going to be people who surprised me. She sat at my kitchen table like it was Thanksgiving instead of emotional triage, and we talked. For 2 hours. About Lisa, about the wedding, about how sometimes love makes you blind and guilt keeps you from asking the right questions. By the end of the night, she wasn't just apologizing. She was telling me stories, old ones, about how Lisa once faked a sprained ankle to skip Aunt Gina's moving day, how she cried her way out of a speeding ticket by saying she was on her way to a funeral. Little things, sure. But they added up. I realized something sitting there. The truth doesn't explode all at once. It leaks. Drip by drip. And once it starts, people can't unsee it. Even the ones who judged me were starting to blink through the smoke. It was a Thursday when Lisa finally called. I almost didn't pick up. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the red button. But something in me wanted to hear it. Needed to. "Hey," I answered, quiet, flat. She didn't waste time. "I just want to know why you did it," she said. No hello. No warm-up. Straight into it like we were picking up an old argument from years ago. "You know why," I said. "No. I know why you think you did it. But I want to hear the real reason. Was it revenge? Did it make you feel powerful? Finally getting your moment?" I laughed. Couldn't help it. A low, tired laugh that sounded more like a sigh. "You think this was a moment? Lisa, you humiliated yourself." I just stopped pretending. There was silence. Then a click. Her voice hardened. "You're not better than me. You've always wanted to believe you were, but you're not. You're bitter. And jealous. And lonely. I had someone who loved me and you couldn't stand it. I should have hung up. But I didn't. Because somewhere in that venom I heard fear. You didn't have someone who loved you," I said, quietly. "You had someone who didn't know who you really were. There's a difference." She went quiet again. Then, "Mom and Dad are never going to forgive you." There it was. The last little thread she could pull. The one that always worked. Family. Belonging. The idea that I could be left out all over again. But this time? That's okay, I said. Because I'm not looking for forgiveness. I'm just done pretending. And I meant it. After the call ended, I stood in the middle of my living room for a long time. Just stood there breathing. It felt like something had settled. Like my spine had straightened. Like I'd finally stepped out of a role I didn't audition for but had played my whole life. That was the moment I drew my line in the sand. No more protecting the family's image at the cost of my own voice. No more silent dinners and careful phone calls and swallowing glass for the sake of peace. From here on out, I was choosing truth. Even if it meant walking away from people who only saw me when they needed a villain. 3 weeks passed. 3 awkward, oddly quiet weeks. The kind where you keep expecting the other shoe to drop only to realize maybe it already did. I didn't hear from Lisa again, which, let's be honest, was a blessing. My parents? Radio silence too. At first, I figured they were just regrouping, figuring out how to spin things, how to write the next chapter of Our Daughter's the Victim, Our Son's the Saboteur. But nothing came. No guilt-tripping texts. No surprise calls. Just absence. And it was the loudest silence I'd ever heard. Then, one day, a letter showed up. Not an email. Not a text. A letter. The real deal. Handwritten. My name scribbled on the front like it took effort. Which meant it wasn't from Lisa. Her effort threshold stops at Instagram captions. It was from Mom. I stood by the mailbox for a while, just staring at it. The envelope was light, thin, the kind of paper you use when you're trying to say something important without saying too much. The kind of letter you write when you've run out of ways to make a phone call feel safe. I opened it slowly. Like it might bite. We don't know what to say to you anymore, it began. Off to a great start. Everything feels broken. I don't know if what you said was true or if you just think it is. But the damage is done. The wedding is off. Lisa hasn't been herself. And your father doesn't know how to look at you without remembering that day. There it was. Not quite blame. Not quite understanding. That classic blend of emotional fog my parents had mastered. I'm writing because I still love you even if I don't understand you. That part? That one hit. Because deep down, yeah, I still wanted to believe they could change. That love could be enough to cross whatever burned bridge stood between us now. But then the letter turned again like it couldn't help itself. We just want our family back. And there it was. Their version of a family. One where peace was bought with silence and the truth was something you only told at funerals. I folded the letter. Stared out the window. Thought about calling her. Thought about showing up. Thought about saying, let's talk. But here's the thing. When someone says they want their family back and what they really mean is they want you to go back to who you were when they didn't have to face the truth, that's not reconciliation. That's a reset. And I was done being reset. So I wrote my own letter. Short. Honest. I love you too. But not enough to keep pretending. I didn't send it. I just held it in my hand for a while, then tore it up. Some truths don't need to be mailed. They just need to be lived. They showed up at my door. No warning. No text. Just the sound of the buzzer, and when I pulled up the camera feed, there they were. Mom and Dad standing on my front step like it was Thanksgiving and they brought a pie. It wasn't. Dad looked older than I remembered. Hair thinner, back hunched. The kind of man you'd barely notice on a sidewalk, a far cry from the guy who used to fill a room with silence just by walking in. Mom had that same tired smile she wore after one of Lisa's meltdowns, the one that said, "We're all pretending this is okay, right?" Except this time I didn't have to pretend. I almost didn't let them in. Almost. But I did. I opened the door and didn't offer coffee. Didn't offer hugs. Just space, the living room, the silence, and whatever dignity they could still hold. Mom went first. "We're not here to rehash what happened," she said. "Good," I replied and meant it. Dad cleared his throat. Looked down. Then back at me. "We've been talking," he said. "About everything. About Lisa. About you. About what we missed." It was the closest he'd ever come to admitting fault. I didn't breathe. "We know we let a lot slide," Mom added. "Things we should have seen. Should have listened to." I kept waiting for the turn. The but. The moment where the guilt shifted back to me. It didn't come, not yet. Instead, Dad reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a check. Set it on the table like it was made of glass. $15,000. "For your new business," he said. "I know it's not everything, but it's something." I stared at it. They'd finally seen me. Finally admitted that maybe, just maybe, I'd been the one telling the truth all along. And now they were trying to say sorry the only way they knew how, by fixing it with money. A gesture that, years ago, would have meant everything. Now, felt like hush money. Like guilt wrapped in a banknote. Still, part of me wanted to take it. Not for the cash, but for what it symbolized. An apology. A crack in the wall. But then I thought about Derek. About the silence after the wedding. About Lisa, still out there, still rewriting the story, probably telling people I made it all up. And I thought about what it would mean if I took that money. It would mean I was letting them rewrite the ending. That this was all just a misunderstanding. That the truth had a price tag. So I pushed it back across the table. I don't want money, I said. I just want honesty. And maybe a little peace. Mom blinked. Dad looked away. And for the first time in my life, I was the one who stood up and said, "That's all I have to say." The last time I saw Lisa was at our grandmother's funeral. She didn't speak to me, didn't even look at me, just stood across the cemetery in a black dress, sunglasses too big for her face, flanked by two friends I didn't recognize. She didn't cry, didn't pretend to either. I'll give her that much. She always knew how to hold her line. Mom and Dad stood beside me, quiet, respectful, different, not fully changed. I'm not that naive, but something had shifted. They didn't push me to hug her. Didn't whisper, "Go say something." They just let it be. After the burial, as everyone started heading toward the cars, Lisa walked past me. Not a glance, not a flinch, but she muttered just loud enough as she passed. "You broke it, not me." And you know what? I didn't argue, because maybe she was right. Maybe I did break it. The illusion, the myth, the carefully constructed image of a family that was whole, when it had been cracked down the middle for years. I stood there for a long time after the others left, hands in my pockets, the smell of damp grass and wilting flowers in the air. It was strange, how grief blended with relief. Not because of Grandma, I loved her, but because the funeral gave me permission to stop fighting ghosts. There was no dramatic goodbye, no final confrontation, just a feeling in my chest like something was closing. Softly, finally. The choice I made wasn't to burn bridges. It was to stop pretending they were still standing. And as I walked back to my car, the wind brushing the back of my neck like a hand I used to trust, I realized something that sat with me in the quiet. Some truths don't fix anything. They just set you free.